My name is Deacon Tony. I'm one of the deacons here at St. John Vianney. I am going to escort you for what we call a walk around the church so that you get familiar with what's in the building itself. There are a lot of statistics in the church which become very boring after a while, and I'll try not to make this boring. I'll make it as light as possible. One way that you know that this is me, I have my Dunkin' Donuts coffee. Always have my Dunkin' Donuts coffee. If you see me and I don't have my coffee, it's not me, it's an imposter. But I will not carry this around the church with me. To begin with, the church is really divided into two main parts. We have the sanctuary, and if you can point down and you look at the floor, we have two different color rugs. One is light brown and one is dark brown at the foot of the stairs. The dark brown area that goes back to the wall is a sanctuary. That's the area that we call the Holy of Holies. The lighter brown area that goes to the back of the church is called the Nave, N-A-V-E. That's where the congregation sits. Everybody takes part during the Mass. We are all equal, but the priest is a celebrant and leads the celebration of the Mass. But this is just to separate the two areas so that you know what they are. I'm going to give you a lot of words during this presentation. You won't remember most of them, and that's fine. You don't have to. There's no test, and nobody's going to ask any special questions. Okay? So why don't we go up into the sanctuary? We'll start up here and take it from there. We are up in the sanctuary. Like I say, the area is called the Holy of Holies. The Catholic Church is steeped in tradition. Some of our traditions come from the Jewish religion. As you notice, when Moses was traveling around the desert for 40 years, they would pitch a tent every night, and they would put the Ark of the Covenant in that tent. That was their tabernacle. That was their sanctuary. That was their area. There was a Holy of Holies, and the only ones allowed in were the priests. This is our sanctuary. It's where we keep the consecrated host, the body and blood of Christ. It is in there every day. If you look at the doors on the tabernacle, they are symbols. First is a cross. Okay, you're welcome when you come into the church, you come up and look at it, look at anything that you want. And we have two angels on the ends, which represent on the covenant of the ark, the two angels that were embossed on the ends of the ark itself. But also the angels, and going with the Christian tradition, we have the host, which is the body of Christ. We have the chalice that holds the blood of Christ. So there's a combination of the Old Testament and the New Testament that ties us together. And just as an aside from that, years ago, and I'm talking about early 80s, I was down in Burlington with some friends. We were talking to Rabbi Wall. And we were talking about the Old Testament and the New Testament. And he looked at us and he says, no. There's no Old Testament and New Testament. There's only one Testament of God. We thought about that. He was right. There is only one Testament. We call Old and New because we go from the Hebrew tradition to the Christian tradition. But there's still only one Testament of God. That's why we have a lot of the traditions from the Hebrew religion into the Christian religions. Okay? At the top and on the bottom, we have two letters, the Greek letters, A and Omega. The Alpha and the Omega, because Jesus said, I am the beginning and the end. And those symbols are in there. Inside of the tabernacle, as I said, we have the host. And if you were to look inside, you would see a silk curtain that goes all the way around, and a silk platform that the hosts sit on, and they're inside the ciborium that I'll show to you later. But that is the tabernacle. That is the center of our faith. Jesus in the tabernacle. You notice a candle, red candle, over here on the right. That is called the sacristy candle. Anytime the Blessed Sacrament is in the tabernacle, that candle is lit. 24 hours a day, 364 days a year. Now you notice I didn't say 365, because there is one day in the year that the tabernacle is empty. And I'm going to give you a second to think about that, what day you think it might be. We celebrate Mass every day of the year, or during the week, 7 days a week, except for one day in the year we do not celebrate Mass. And that is the day that the tabernacle is empty and the candle is put out. And if you haven't guessed it already, that day is Good Friday, because that's the day that Jesus suffered and died. So we do not celebrate Mass on that day. Our Mass for Holy Weekend, during Holy Week, actually starts on Thursday night and ends with a culmination on Holy Saturday at the evening. It's a continuous Mass. We have a communion service on Friday, Good Friday, because at the end of Mass, we do not have a dismissal on Holy Thursday. We just leave in silence. So Mass continues on through Good Friday into Holy Saturday. But that's the only day of the year the tabernacle is empty. Okay? The second most important thing in the sanctuary area is the altar. In the center of this table, you see a marble stone. Okay? It has, this particular stone has 5 crosses on them, one on each corner and one in the center. A lot of times you'll see that cross in the center with smaller crosses in each section. This is called the Jerusalem cross because of the 5 countries that were in the Crusades. Okay? England is the center, and then the other countries are around. But also in this stone, you see an area right here, a small square, that is cemented in place. Okay? When the church is consecrated, the bishop says a special Mass, places the stone in place on the table, and there is a relic in here of St. John Vianney. We have three types of relics: Class 1, Class 2, and Class 3. Class 1 would be something that is a part of the saint. It could be a flake of skin, it could be a hair follicle, anything, something small. A Class 2 relic would be something that the saint owned, a piece of clothing, something of that nature. And a Class 3 relic would be something that the saint touched. And I believe we have a Class 1 relic here, but I wouldn't swear to it. But it is in the documentation, which is locked up in the safe in the rectory, to prove that we do have a relic in this stone. And if it ever comes to the point where a church closes, which does happen, they have to decommission the church. And at that time, the bishop comes in, says a special Mass, removes the altar stone, and processes out with it. And that decommissions this sanctuary, so it's no longer a sanctuary. As I say, in the Christian religion, we are steeped in a lot of tradition, especially in Catholicism. You notice along the wall, the back wall here in the sanctuary, we have symbols on the wall. And you can come up and check these out anytime you're in the church. There's a circle with a cross in the center of it, okay? And it looks like a sunflower, because Jesus is the Son of God. It's a sunburst because Jesus is the light of the world. And that represents everything that we are. We have the rooster. When Jesus said Peter will deny him 3 times, we have the cock and the crow. We have here a pillar and a whip and a ring on the end. Jesus was chained to the pillar when they whipped him. We have the crown of thorns and the 3 nails that they nailed Jesus to the cross with. Now, interesting point about the nails. We think of nails as 8-penny nails, 10-penny nails, whatever they are. Okay, we're all familiar with these. The nails that they used to put Jesus on the cross and other criminals were like railroad spikes. They were big, they were square, they were about that long, and they pounded them in. So the nails that they put in Jesus' wrists and his feet and that they pulled out were big. That had to be extremely, extremely painful. I know what it's like to get stuck with a nail. I was a carpenter. They hurt. I can't imagine going through that kind of pain with those kind of nails. On the other side of the tabernacle, we have a hammer and pliers. Hammer, obviously, to bang the nails in, pliers to pull them out. And the next one, we have a ladder, a stick with a sponge on the end, and a spear. Obviously, the ladder to climb up to the cross where Jesus' head was, the spear where the soldiers stuck the lance in Jesus' side, and the sponge is when they fed him the hyssop when he was dying of thirst. He was begging for a drink. The next one is a cloak and 3 dice. Now, if you remember, in the scriptures it said that the soldiers gambled for Jesus' clothes. But his garment was sewn in 1 piece. So instead of tearing it and dividing it up among the soldiers, they gambled for it in 1 piece, and 1 soldier won the entire thing. And the last one is a crown, because Jesus is the Son of God. Jesus is our Lord and Master. Jesus is King. Next thing I want to cover are the 2 books that are used during the Mass. This one that the priest uses is called a sacramentary. It's got ribbons, but you can also tell the sacramentary because it has page tabs built in. This book has every Mass throughout the year. It has all of the Eucharistic prayers that the priest uses during the consecration. It has everything from beginning to end of Mass, okay? And they have funeral masses in there. They have consolatory masses. They have everything. Weddings, whatever you can think of is in this book. So the priest uses this sacramentary during Mass. The second book is over here. It's called the lectionary. You can tell the difference because it's got 1 ribbon and there's no tabs. Okay? Lectionary has all of the readings for the year. The Catholic Church has the years broken up into 3 years, A, B, and C, and every reading, every gospel from the Old Testament and New Testament is in this book. Okay, so that's the difference between the sacramentary and the lectionary. The reason we have them all laid out in order, which comes from Rome and from the bishops, any Mass that is said in any day of the year, the same readings are read in every church in the world. And the reason for that is we are all Christians, we are all Catholics, we are all raising our voices in unison in worship to God. We're doing it together. A lot of the Christian churches that I know, the minister will pick whatever readings he wants for that weekend, but all the different churches are all reading something different. In the Catholic Church, we all have the same readings, so we're all praying together, even though we're separated by distance. Candles, one on each side of the altar and one on each side of the tabernacle, and that represents the holiness of the area that we're standing in and that we are celebrating Mass. Baptismal font. Okay. And there's no water in it right now. When we do a baptism, put water in, and the oils, everything that is used for a baptism are in a small shelf in the back here. Right? This is the Paschal candle. We get a new Paschal candle every year on Holy Saturday at the Easter Vigil. Now you notice it has a date, 2020. The next candle we have will have 2021 on it, okay? These points are placed through a ceremony at the Easter Vigil before we process into the church with the candle. And this candle is used funerals, weddings, anything special throughout the year. We'll use a Paschal candle. And we use it for baptisms, anything of that nature. And here, we have these vessels of sacred oils. We have 3 oils. They're used during baptism, they're used during confirmation, and they're used for the anointing of the sick. And they all have a label on them. This one is SC for Sacred Chrism. This one is OS. Those are used for baptism and confirmation. And the top one is OI, was the oil of infirmatum. The oil of the infirm, we use that for the anointing of the sick. And those oils are blessed once a year at a special Mass that the bishop conducts at the cathedral. It's called the Chrism Mass. It's a big, long, drawn-out Mass. It's absolutely beautiful if you ever want to go to it. And those oils are blessed, and they're in big vats, and all of the parishes in the diocese come to the cathedral to get these stocks filled up at the Chrism Mass. Now, if during the year we should ever run out, the remainder of the oil in those big flasks are put aside and they are saved, so a church will never run out of oil. We have moved out of the sanctuary and we are now in the nave, okay? General population, congregation sits out here in the nave. But I want you to notice that down the side of the church, on both sides, we have what is known as the Stations of the Cross. There are 14 stations, generally 7 down one side and then 7 up on the right-hand side. And they depict Jesus when he was condemned to death, his suffering, passion, and complete all the way around Good Friday. You can come in, say prayers at the Station of the Cross any day of the week. But during Lent, on Friday nights, it's traditional that we get together as a community to do the Stations of the Cross, which are usually led by either the priest or myself, or Deacon Bill. Now, just as a point of information, which I think is great, my wife and I have been to a number of states across the country, been to many, many churches, We have been in Israel. We have been in Rome. We have been to Alaska. Every church we have ever been in, the Stations of the Cross are down the start, number 1, down the left-hand side of the church, and end with 14 on the right-hand side of the church. And I'm thinking to myself, why? What's the reason down the left and up the right? I have talked to priests across the country and in different countries. I have talked to bishops across the country and in different countries. And I asked them all the same question, why? And there isn't any one of them that could give me an answer. And I'm wondering, what's the theological reason behind this? And one time my wife and I were in Emmitsburg in Maryland at the St. Elizabeth Ann Seton Shrine, which is right across the border actually from where Gettysburg is. So if you know where Gettysburg is, you know where Emmitsburg is. And there was a nun, about 84 years old. It was her turn to be taking care of the grounds and whatnot. And we were talking to her. And I asked her the same question. And she started to laugh. She thought it was funny. I said, when I asked her, why are you laughing? She says, there is no theological reason. It's just tradition. Nobody knows why they started down the left side and up the right. She says, but there's nothing says it can't be the other way around. And I thought that was very interesting, because a couple of years later, my wife and I were in Florida. When you go down Route 95 from Georgia into Florida, you go over this bridge called St. Anne's Bridge into Florida. We came back to head north, to come back to Vermont, went over St. Anne's Bridge, just over the border into Georgia, and we took a right down to a little peninsula. They had a Catholic church there. It was maybe a quarter of the size of St. John Vianney. If it held 60 people, it held a lot. The sanctuary area had 2 chairs, one for the priest, one for an altar server, and that was it. Very, very tiny space. And in that space, they had the Stations of the Cross. They went down the right-hand wall and up the left. That is the only church I've ever seen in my entire life down the right and up the left instead of down the left and up the right. So it's just an interesting point. It was interesting to me. It may mean nothing to you, I don't know. But when you're in the church, you check out the Stations of the Cross. And I think you'll enjoy them. They're kind of nice. Back of the church, and we are going to a room that's called the sacristy. You can tell it's a sacristy because it says it right above the top of the door. This is the place where we keep all of the priest's vestments, all of the deacon's vestments, and all of the vessels that are used during Mass or any other time of the year. We keep the priest's vestments in here. Not the priest, just the vestments. Okay. And one of the first things he puts on, priest vestments, deacon's vestments, I'll show you with mine, it's easier. The first thing we put on is this white garment. Priests have the same thing. It's called an alb. And the reason it's called an alb is because it's white. An alb comes from the Latin word alb, which means white. That's how we have albatross, the bird and whatnot. And they come in different colors, usually off-white or tin or brown, but they're still called albs. It's the first vestment that we put on. Now a priest, once we put the alb on, we put on a stole. This is a deacon's stole. And there is a difference. Deacon's stole goes over the left-hand shoulder and across the body. A priest's stole goes around his neck and down both sides. Okay? And the reason for that is a sign of the office. He's a priest, I'm a deacon. So it tells the difference. The vestments, the outer vestments that we wear, A priest wears a chasuble. A deacon wears a dalmatic. And there is a difference. A chasuble has no sleeves. It just drapes over the priest's head. It's got a hole cut for his head and it just drapes on him like a cape. A deacon's dalmatic has sleeves. They're short sleeves, but they're sleeves. And again, that's a sign of the office between priests and deacons. When we stand next to each other, we have our arms down, you can't tell the difference. A lot of people call me father, and I say, no, I'm not a priest. I'm a deacon. But if you put your arms out, you can see the sleeves, but down by your side, they all look the same. Okay? And priests can wear other vestments along with these. One vestment that we both wear is, you see the rope that goes around the waist, okay? That is called a cincture. And it just kind of holds things in place. If your elbow's too long, you can hike it up a little bit so you don't trip over it. It's used for a lot of different things. But those are the vestments that we wear. And you notice we have different colors. During Lent and Advent, we wear purple, because purple is a sign of royalty. Special times of the year, such as Good Friday, we will wear red, because red is a sign of martyrs. We wear red for the celebration of all of the apostles and the saints. Green is used during regular times of the year when nothing else fits. We don't wear white, we don't have purple, we don't wear red. It's called ordinary time, and we wear green. And then we have white, which is used for special occasions, Christmas, Easter, funerals, special occasions, we will wear white. Okay? Altar service. We keep the vestments in here. They are also called albs, different size. And they also wear a cincture. Rope goes around the waist, and whatever color the priest is wearing or the deacon is wearing for vestments, they match the color. You haven't seen any altar service lately because of the pandemic. There's limited number of people that are allowed in the sanctuary during Mass. Vessels that we use during Mass. Now this is, you don't have to memorize this stuff, but they're just kind of nice to know. After the priest gives his homily and we have the prayers of the faithful, we have to prepare the altar for the consecration. And the consecration is just a meal, same as any other meal. So the altar service, prepare the altar. When you're at home, when you were a kid, your mother said, get the table ready for supper. What's the first thing that you put down on the table? Would be a tablecloth. This is a corporal. It's a tablecloth. All right? What's the next thing you will put down? The plate with hosts in it. This is the priest's ciborium. It's called a paten, but it is also a ciborium. Anything that has the Blessed Sacrament in it is a ciborium. So there's your plate. What else do you need? A cup. It's a chalice. And there's one thing that's missing over here. What else do you have? Yep, you put it right next to the plate on the table. It's a napkin. It's called a purificator. This is what the priests and the deacons use to wipe their hands. You've just set the table for the Lord's Supper. And there's one other thing that we need that we keep in the refrigerator. water and wine. Cruets. When you have a salad, you have oil and vinegar. In our cruets, we have water and wine for the chalice. And we have just prepared the altar for the celebration and consecration of the Eucharist. So, this is everything that's used. And you notice, if you have 2 people or 4 people distributing communion, we have the pre-ciborium, but we have other ciborians who will put the Blessed Sacrament in, so that we can also distribute communion. We have the cross, which is carried in the altar service, carry the cross in. And you notice above the tabernacle there is a cross that is hanging. You cannot have double symbols in the sanctuary. So when this is carried in, over by the post near the baptismal font, there is a stand the same as this. The altar server will put it in the stand and it will sit off to the side. And then he will process in with it, and then he will process out with it. Okay? Holy water fonts. These are next to the doors. We do not have them out there now because of the pandemic, but there's usually bowls of holy water. You bless yourself coming in to church. We are steeped in tradition. You bless yourself coming in. You can bless yourself leaving the church. Some people do, some people don't, but you always bless yourself coming in. When you get down to the pew that you're going to go in, you always genuflect facing the tabernacle. That's in reverence to Christ, who is living presence in the tabernacle. So we always genuflect going in, we genuflect coming out. Oh, okay, so I guess that pretty much covers the walk around the church. With that, I thank you all for watching patiently, and I hope you got some information out of this that is useful. Thank you.